There is something in New Jersey called the Consumer Information Statement, and if you are a real estate agent or a home buyer, home seller, or a participant in a transaction, you probably want to know what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my screen, go through it with you, explain each part of it. It's only 2 pages. If you're interested in the New Jersey contract though, I'm going to put up there my New Jersey contract video. That's 26 minutes because it's 13 to 14 pages. This isn't going to be that long, so don't worry. But the most important thing about the consumer information statement is that you should get it right away. We want you to understand what the roles of a buyer's agent, seller's agent, transaction agent are, and their obligations to you. Let's do it. Oh, my name is Jonathan Green. I run a big team called Streamlined Properties on Market. We're brokered by eXp Realty. I have 50 real estate agents on my team in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and New York. This is specific to the New Jersey Consumer Information Statement, and I'm here to help you. Let's go. Let me share my screen here so we can get this going. Let's go. I'm off the window. This is your consumer information statement that there's like 4 different versions of this that all say the same thing. But generally, this is what you're going to get. And this is what our job as real estate agents is to explain to you when we have our first contact about real estate. So we're required to disclose how we intend to work with buyers and sellers. Tells you that right there. Here we go. Let's start with the seller's agent. So a seller's agent represents the seller, and that means they're just going to be on the seller side, which is why it's always so curious when buyers want to talk to the listing agent, which we're going to get to in dual agency. But generally, a seller's agent is just going to be responsible for representing the seller, and all the information that gets to them from other people will be told to the seller. It means as your seller's representative, you're going to make sure that they're fully informed of everything that you hear. As a buyer's agent, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to tell the buyer. Every piece of information that you can get from the seller side, you're going to let the buyer know so they can make the most informed decision. These are pretty simple. I don't think we're, creating a new version of rocket science here, but here you go. This is where it gets a little more murky. A disclosed dual agent actually works both sides. Some people don't ever do this. In some states, it's not allowed. It's because there's an issue with the fiduciary duty. So as a licensee representing both parties, you cannot disclose that what one side's indications are to the other, because that would put them at a disadvantage. You would have to clear anything that one side wants to relay. Make sure it's okay before you relay it to the other side. It tells you right here why. If you disclose that the seller will accept a price less than listing price, or that buyer will pay a price greater than the offered price, that doesn't help them. You're giving more leverage to one side of the transaction. And if you're representing both sides, you cannot do that. Then the fourth possibility, besides a buyer's agent, seller's agent, disclosed dual agent, is a transaction broker. Those are just like a manager of the transaction, don't represent either side, and they're just going to make sure that the transaction gets done. So before you disclose any confidential information, you want to make sure there are 4 different business relationships, which I just went over. You want to understand which one you're having, and this sheet is something that will be presented to you. But to be honest, this can be done in a conversation. It's not that difficult. If you have a real estate agent, or you are a real estate agent, and you represent either the buyer or seller, your job is to maintain your fiduciary duty by doing what is in their best interests. It's pretty simple. Don't give their secrets to the other side, and anything you learn from the other side, tell them right away. So this goes into more detail. Seller's agent works only for the seller, talks about fiduciary duties. This is interesting though. In working with a seller's agent must act honestly. So the overarching theme is sometimes our clients say, well, you represent us. Why would you say something like that, which is give information that you have to give? Like if you know that there's an underground oil tank, you can't list a property as a listing agent and pretend that you don't know. even if the seller doesn't want to put it on the seller's disclosure, they basically have to, or you can't take that listing, in my opinion. You can't help them lie to the public. So in general, seller's agent, you're going to be fair to both sides, but your fiduciary duty remains with your seller. Same for a buyer's agent. Buyer's agent works only for the buyer. And I mean, every part of real estate is relationship building. So your job is to work together. You just have to remember, as an agent, and again, if you're the client in this situation, your agent can't give information to the other side that could harm you, which means you're either paying more or getting less for the property when you didn't want them to disclose it. There's a few things that you can say that will really tip people off. If you ever say the seller's super motivated and they didn't want you to say that, that just means they're going to get a lower offer. Even if it's true, they may not want you to disclose that, and it's not in their best interest for you to disclose that unless they tell you they want you to. Same thing here in dealing with sellers. Buyer's agent must act honestly. I mean, I wish it was this easy. If everyone were just transparent and honest, real estate would be a lot easier. It's just the way that it is. They talk about a separate written buyer agency agreement here with the brokerage firm at Streamline Properties on Market. We don't use those. The way that I look at this is you need to sign as little as possible, because we're going to do a great job and that's going to keep you working with us. If I needed a piece of paper to tie you in to make sure that you kept working with us, I probably wouldn't be doing as great a job. I personally and my team doesn't need the extra security of you agreeing that we're in a relationship. We're just going to do a great job. You're going to keep working with us because we do. And if not, I'm happy to hear about where we failed and try to make that up. So disclosed dual agent is really the murkiest part of this whole consumer information statement. They work for the buyer and the seller. So to work as a dual agent, you must have consent. A lot of times, the one thing you have to remember about dual agency, it actually is not just for this form. They're talking about working with the buyer and seller as the agent. Dual agency is actually if both sides of the transaction work for the same brokerage. So I work for eXp Realty. My team is under that. If I'm doing a deal and on the other side is someone from eXp Realty who has nothing to do with my team, that's still dual agency. So dual agency applies to the brokerage. So sometimes sellers and buyers get freaked out. I didn't realize you're representing both sides. We're not. The brokerage is representing both sides and the brokerage represents us. That's a very important distinction. You can do it as myself representing both sides. I personally don't do that, but it can be done. It just can get a little dicey because you have to manage both sides, and everybody, you know, seller wants to get the most money, buyer wants to pay the least money possible to get the property. All right. A licensee working as a disclosed dual agent must explain carefully to each side how it works and what the effect is. There's certain things that they cannot disclose, which may not feel as good in a transaction. So these are things you look at. Again, honestly, we can send this to you anytime if you want a copy of this consumer information statement and you're a client. If we've already talked about real estate, you probably already have it. So here you go again. Brokerage firm acting as a disclosed dual agent will not be able to put one party's interest ahead of the other, cannot advise or counsel either party on how to gain an advantage at the expense of the other party. That's important. I said before, I don't understand why buyers call into the listing agent. At the end of this video, I'm going to put that video in there about why you don't need to call the listing agent. You always think you're going to get a better deal. Doesn't work like that. You're paying the same commission to the person who represents the seller. Transaction broker to me is really nominal. You will see them on the MLS. Those are like 1% listings a lot of the time. They basically put a listing on the MLS and they just kind of let the seller handle making the showings. It's not a huge popular thing, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I don't have anyone who works as a transaction broker. We've done deals with transaction brokers. They just kind of do the paperwork and you deal direct with the client and their attorney in the state of New Jersey. So the important thing to note is this is something that you should get the first time that you're going to speak about real estate and you're actually going to sign it. I want to let you know you're not signing away your life. You're not agreeing to a buyer's agency agreement. If you sign this, you have absolutely no obligation. You're just signing to acknowledge that you've received it, and that's it. That means you understand generally from reading it what the obligation is for agents working with sellers, agents working with buyers. Again, this applies to landlords and tenants. Declares the business relationship. Most of the time, you're going to see these highlighted. The reason why is because, as I explained, it's the brokerage that creates dual agency. So if a brokerage has 20,000 agents in an area, you don't want to preclude working from all of those. So that's why you check the dual agency box. You're going to get it from us via an online portal to sign. You're going to sign it. It's going to get dated, and that's it. So that's the New Jersey Consumer Information Statement. I hope it was helpful. It's helpful for both agents and clients to understand that when you sign that, you're not agreeing to anything, not like getting into some long-term relationship that you can't get out of. It's just an acknowledgement that someone has explained to you how it works if you're working with buyer, seller, both, or as a transaction broker. Have a great day.